Hey everyone, welcome to the Event Hub, where every event turns into an unforgettable experience. The eyes of the tennis world remain fixed on the scorching hard courts of the California Open, yet the aftershocks of what unfolded are being felt far beyond the stadium, all the way to the heart of the Czech Republic. This was not simply another early round upset or a fleeting headline. It was a jolt to the system, a performance so commanding and fearless that it may alter the balance of power on the WTA Tour for the rest of the 2026 season. In a sport where rankings, reputation, and experience often script the expected outcome, a 20-year-old left-handed prodigy from the Philippines tore up the script entirely. Alexandra Eala didn't just rise to the occasion. She owned it against a player widely regarded as one of the most tactically gifted competitors in the game. She delivered a display that fused precision, aggression, and emotional steel into something unforgettable. Across the net stood Karolina Muchova, world number 13 and fresh off a triumphant campaign in Doha. Muchova is revered for her artistry, her ability to carve up the court with biting slices, disguise drop shots until the final second, and glide forward to finish points with delicate authority at the net. She plays tennis like a grandmaster plays chess, always thinking 3 moves ahead. But on this night in California, her usual patterns were disrupted at their core. Muchova arrived at the California Open, riding the crest of momentum. Her WTA 1000 title in Doha had re-established her as a genuine contender among the sport's elite. She had rediscovered rhythm, composure, and that effortless blend of creativity and calculation that once carried her deep into Grand Slam territory. Many analysts labeled her a serious threat for the Sunshine Double, a dark horse capable of unsettling even the tour's dominant forces. Yet, standing opposite her was a different kind of threat, one built not just on potential, but on belief. Eala, already celebrated as a trailblazer in Philippine tennis, entered the tournament as a dangerous floater, ranked 31 in the world. She wasn't seated among the favorites, but those who had watched her steady ascent in 2026 knew she was no ordinary outsider. Her game had evolved beyond flashes of brilliance into something cohesive and formidable. What she produced against Muchova wasn't merely an upset, it was a declaration. The so-called Eala effect has now moved beyond social media buzz and highlight reels. It has become a tactical reality on tour. Her ability to anticipate angles, absorb pace, and instantly flip defense into attack is forcing established stars to reconsider their approach. Every serve placement, every heavy topspin forehand, and every fearless step inside the baseline signaled a player transitioning from promising talent to strategic force. The magnitude of this result stretches beyond the scoreboard. For the Czech Republic, a nation synonymous with tennis excellence, home to icons like Martina Navratilova, Petra Kvitova, Karolina, and Barbara Krejcikova, watching their leading contender outmaneuvered by a rising Southeast Asian star carries symbolic weight. It underscores the global evolution of the sport. Talent is no longer concentrated in traditional strongholds alone. The map of women's tennis is expanding and new regions are asserting themselves with authority. For the Philippines, however, this is nothing short of historic. Never before has a Filipino player dismantled a top 15 opponent in such commanding fashion on a stage of this magnitude. It represents a breakthrough not only for one athlete, but also for an entire sporting culture. Eala's triumph reverberates across Southeast Asia, signaling that the pathway to elite tennis is no longer reserved for a select few nations. To truly grasp the scale of this moment, we must examine the tactical layers beneath the drama. How did Eala blunt Muchova's trademark variety? How did she transform low defensive slices into springboards for attacks? Why did Muchova's usually dependable serve falter under sustained pressure? And, perhaps most importantly, what does this mean for the remainder of the California Open and the unfolding 2026 season? Before we dissect the mechanics of the match, it's essential to revisit the trajectories that brought both players here. For Muchova, 2026 had been shaping up as a renaissance. Injuries that once stalled her momentum seemed firmly behind her. Her timing had sharpened, her confidence had returned. Tournament by tournament, she rebuilt her aura as one of the most intellectually dangerous competitors on tour. The Doha title was not just silverware. It was validation that she belonged back among the sport's elite decision-makers. Her blend of touch and tactical intelligence made her a nightmare matchup for aggressive baseliners. She could slow the tempo, inject spin, disrupt rhythm, and then strike with sudden acceleration. Many believed California would be another stepping stone toward an even bigger campaign in the coming months. But on this particular night, the narrative bent in an entirely different direction. And that is where this story truly begins. But Alexandra Eala had written a completely different script. From the very first point, it was evident that this wasn't just a young star riding momentum. This was a player executing a carefully engineered plan. Eala stepped onto the court mentally primed and tactically armed. Every swing carried intention. Every adjustment reflected preparation. She read Karolina Muchova's patterns early, anticipated her favorite constructions, and responded with a blend of explosive pace, heavy topspin, and disciplined footwork that dismantled the Czech's rhythm piece by piece. This wasn't merely a stylistic contrast, it was a philosophical collision. Muchova thrives on nuance, variation, disguise, and subtle manipulation of. Eala thrives on assertion, calculated aggression, relentless pressure, and the refusal to concede territory. By the end of the match, the outcome wasn't just a victory for Eala. It was a shift in perception. The hierarchy that once felt stable suddenly looked fragile. A new force had not just arrived, it had announced itself with authority, and that's what makes this result historic. Coming into California, Muchova's story was one of resurgence. Years of wrist injuries and abdominal setbacks had threatened to stall a career that many believed was destined for major titles. But 2026 had felt different. The Doha triumph was more than a trophy. It was validation. She had outthought elite opponents, absorbed pressure, and demonstrated the cerebral brilliance that defines her game. Her ranking climbed back to World No. 13, and inside the locker room, the whispers were clear. She was playing at a top 5 level again. Muchova represents a rare archetype in modern women's tennis. She is not simply a power merchant. She composes matches like a symphony, blending chip and charge tactics, feathered drop shots, biting slices, and sudden accelerations that catch opponents leaning the wrong way. On her best days, playing her feels like chasing shadows. No two rallies look the same. No rhythm settles in. Every exchange is a tactical riddle. Standing opposite her was a different evolution of the modern game. Forged at the Rafa Nadal Academy carries the grit and discipline synonymous with Spanish training culture, but her identity is uniquely her own. She combines structured point construction with fearless baseline aggression. Her 2026 campaign had already hinted at something special: the breakthrough performances in Dubai, the fearless shot-making under pressure, and the swelling crowds in Melbourne and Manila, rallying behind what has become known as the Eala Army. Yet, one lingering question shadowed her rise. Could she outmaneuver a master tactician? Could she defeat someone who would not simply feed her pace, but instead distort it, slow it, spin it, and test her patience? From the opening game, she answered with conviction. Her left-handed game proved to be the tactical key. Muchova's signature backhand slice, so effective against right-handers, skidding low and dragging them wide, instead floated directly into Eala's preferred strike zone. Time and again, the Filipina stepped inside the baseline and unleashed ferocious cross-court forehands loaded with RP. It wasn't reckless hitting, it was calculated domination. Each forehand not only pushed Muchova back, but also chipped away at her tactical comfort. Suddenly, the geometry that Muchova relies on began to betray her. Angles that once opened space now invited attack. Drop shots that typically disarm opponents were chased down and countered with sharp replies. The Czech serve, usually a platform for control, faltered under sustained pressure, particularly on the second delivery. Sensed vulnerability and pounced without hesitation. The first set bordered on clinical perfection. Eala broke in the third game, punishing second serves with aggressive returns and refusing to allow Muchova extended time to construct rallies. There was a visible shift in body language on the Czech side of the net, a flicker of disbelief as her usual variations failed to disrupt the young Filipina's tempo. Attempts to shorten points at the net were met with blistering passing shots. Drives down the line and painted the chalk. Cross-court exchanges tilted relentlessly in Eala's favor. This wasn't a player surviving against a higher-ranked opponent. This was a player dictating terms. And as the set progressed, it became unmistakably clear this was no fleeting surge of momentum. It was a systematic takeover, the kind that signals a broader transformation on tour. 1 point at 4-2 in the opening set crystallized everything. Karolina Muchova carved a drop shot of the highest quality, feathered and disguised until the final millisecond, tumbling just over the net with that familiar backspin bite. The crowd collectively inhaled, expecting the veteran's trademark sleight of hand to seal another ghostly winner, but Alexandra Eala had already. She exploded forward with split-second anticipation, balance never compromised, and eyes locked onto the dipping ball. In one seamless motion, she whipped a forehand winner that screened past Muchova before the Czech could even reset her stance. It wasn't just athleticism. It was inevitability. The kind of point that shifts belief. That moment wasn't merely about 5-2 on the scoreboard. It was a declaration. Eala wasn't here to survive rallies. She was here to dictate them. From there, the first set snowballed into a showcase. Every return bit deep into the court. Every forehand pushed Muchova further behind the baseline. The blend of tactical discipline, elite conditioning, and fearless execution rendered the Czech's artistry ineffective. When the set closed, the scoreline told one story, but the manner of victory told a far larger one. A 20-year-old from the Philippines had stepped onto a global stage and seized it without hesitation. Then came another breathtaking exchange. Eala sprinted corner to corner, stretching the rally beyond what seemed physically possible. With Muchova pressing forward, racket extended, Eala flicked a perfectly weighted lob that arced just beyond reach. Gasps rippled through the stands. But she wasn't finished. Charging in behind her own improvisation, she crushed a swinging volley to punctuate the point. For a split second, the stadium froze in disbelief and then erupted in a roar that shook the California air. In that instant, the Czech camp understood the reality. This would not be routine. This would be war. To her credit, Muchova responded like the champion she is. The second set brought recalibration. She increased net clearance, added heavier topspin, and began targeting Eala's backhand with greater depth. The adjustments paid dividends. Rallies lengthened, the tempo slowed. The veteran's experience honed through deep Grand Slam runs, including her final at the French Open, surfaced. For a stretch, the momentum tilted, serving at 5-4 to level the match. Muchova appeared poised to restore order. The narrative felt ready to swing back toward experience and pedigree. She had the scoreboard, the composure, and the historical edge.